What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
Guys, my epiphany moment with Harleen's dad was when we were supposed to go to my hometown for my grandparents, my nanke, my mother's parents, to meet Harleen for the first time when she was about 5 months old. We'd had the plan for a while. My grandparents were super excited. And on the day, he kicked off. He started a fight about something ridiculous. And he essentially said that if you want me to come, you have to ask me respectfully. And by ask respectfully, he essentially meant beg. And I said to him, look, I'm not going to beg you to keep your plans. If you're not going to go, you're not going to go. So he left. The kids and I, well, Ollie and I were there crying. We were really upset, didn't understand his behavior. One of my friends called and said, bro, come and take your wife, come and take her to see her grandparents. And he said to her, no, I'm not coming to take her. I want her to learn today the meaning of a husband. So that day I did. I learned the meaning of a husband, that the husband I had was one I didn't want.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
So my epiphany moment happened a little bit too late, but I'm so grateful and thankful that I finally opened my eyes, alhamdulillah. But one night after my ex-husband had a very violent episode and physically harmed me, I woke up the next morning, woke my children up, and my son looked me right in my eyes and said, I hate that monster. I'm so tired of him making you cry, and I'm so tired of him hurting you. And mind you, he was only 4 years old at the time. And subhanAllah, I tried so hard to protect them from seeing what their father was doing, where I would hide them in the room or try to go elsewhere when I noticed that he was about to do something. But kids know everything and see everything. So you're better off leaving for the...
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
When he told me a mouth is a mouth. So okay, go enjoy Kyle's mouth. And I'm going out the door.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
My epiphany moment with my now ex-husband was the last time I confronted him about his drug abuse. That particular day I was making the bed and found a bottle of pills hidden under our mattress, original. In confronting him, he tore up our house. We had 2 dogs at the time, and they had those big, huge plastic kennels. He had slammed both of those on the floor and busted them to hell. Holes in the wall, furniture damaged, lamps broken, refrigerator dented from him punching it, you name it, he did it. The house had been tore up worse than I had ever seen. My kids weren't at home at the time that was happening, but it was getting close to them coming home. So my kids get home before I can clean up the mess, and I'm standing there lying to my kids, telling them that our dogs had gotten into a fight. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that I was my mom. My mom had done the same many times over to protect us from what my dad had done. So I ended things and have never lied to my kids again.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
My ex started an argument with me one night, like every other night. Just a normal night in that fucking household. And my son, who is not biologically his son, was completely used to this kind of shit, so he walked out of his room like nothing else. And once he saw the look on my face and he heard the tone of voice coming out of my ex, he gave me this look. He rolled his eyes, but at the same time it wasn't like a disingenuous eye roll. It was heartbreak and exhaustion. The heartbreak on that kid's face. So I told him, hold on, you just go back in your room. I'll take care of this. I'll be in there in a minute to talk to you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're going to be good. Because the moment I saw his face, I said to myself, we're fucking leaving. So he goes in his room, and my ex decides he wants to leave so that he can go get a pack of cigarettes, because that's his way of letting me know that I was triggering him and stressing him out. Was he could quit smoking until we would argue, and then once we would argue, he needed to go get a pack of cigarettes. Long story short, I watched the taillights leave the driveway. I went up to my son, I told him to pack a fucking bag. We were putting it in my trunk, and we were leaving the next day when I got home from work. And I sure the fuck did. There's a lot of details to this story, so if you want to know, I'll tell you more, but literally, it was the look on my 11-year-old son's face, 10-year-old, 11-year-old son's face. So.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
It was when I didn't want to give up, even though I knew I was in a really shitty, abusive, manipulative situation, married to a narcissist, that I knew I couldn't leave unless I tried everything and went to therapy for myself to figure out if I could help the situation at all. And after 3 months of that, my therapist asked me to bring him to the next session. So I asked him if he would join me, and his response was, "Why would I go to therapy when you're the one with the problem?"
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
It was in 2015. My ex and I were having a conversation. I was supposed to be getting out the army. My unit was deploying. And we were sitting there conversing about what we were going to do once I was out. And he joked about how he liked to put Benadryl in my food to knock me out so he could sneak out the house and do whatever. And it was at the point when I decided, I feel like I'm safer extending in the army and going on this deployment than I am staying home with him.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
It all started with a home renovation. I had done literally all the work. He was there for demo day. Even the contractor that we helped with the kitchen and the other tradesmen that came in acknowledged that I should leave him, even pulled me aside to say that he was a lazy piece of shit and I could do way better. He continuously threw in my face that he had paid a good amount of money to start this project, when in reality I had spent thousands more in expenses, plus my hard labor on this renovation. He took a week off work to make amends and to help around the house, and he spent every single day drunk on the couch. At this point, he only had to paint one wall and I had already edged it. I ended up painting that wall. And then I looked at my daughter and I said, "Is this what I hope for you? This happiness? Is this the example of a marriage that I want you to see? Is this the man I want my son to emulate as a partner? The qualities I want my daughter to look for in another man?" See, one person in the relationship was building a beautiful home and the other person was sitting there doing absolutely nothing, thinking that they could throw money at the project, not putting any hard work into it and still reaping the benefits.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
Honestly, it was probably right after I found out that they messaged my best friend and asked if I talked shit about them while I was on the operating table getting top surgery done. Big old yikes.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
So when I was putting on my favorite hat this morning, I was reminded of my ex-boyfriend. I have a husband now, so this is a long time ago. But I've always loved hats. I love baseball caps so much. I have a million hats. I love them. Well, I remember this one time I went camping and I had my favorite baseball cap on. It was tattered and worn, but I still very much loved it. And my ex-boyfriend grabbed the hat from me off of my head and said, "Why do you wear this thing? It's so ugly. You look so ugly in it." I begged him to give it back to me, and instead he hung it over the fire and he was going to throw it in there. I remember crying and screaming, "Please don't throw my hat in the fire," and he was laughing. He finally threw the hat back to me and then told me how ugly I was and said that I am embarrassing because I wear too much makeup. So I broke up with him. Fast forward to today, I have a huge hat collection. I became a very successful makeup artist for 6 years. Be who you want to be.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
Okay, so I had been dating this guy for like 6 months. We had been really close friends for like 2 years, but when I started dating him, I didn't recognize him. Like, he just turned into a completely different person. I felt like I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't tell him how I felt. It was just bad. So I asked to go on a break, and I went to visit my dad in Florida to get away because I live in Nevada, right? And my parents have been divorced since I was like 10, so I visit my dad and leave him pretty often. But this specific time, I couldn't stop crying when I was leaving. And I'm a Christian, so I believe that God speaks to me. And I was like, "God, why am I crying so much? I've done this so many times." And I felt like the Lord told me, if you don't leave this relationship that you're in, this is how your kids are going to feel in the future. And I've hated having divorced parents. So I literally was like, I came back to Vegas and I was done. I didn't ever want my kids to feel the way that I felt with having divorced parents. So that was my moment.